topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Join your host, who is a multiple #1 international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer. She's the founder of Genuinely-You and has 30 years experience of helping people step into their genuine, authentic power. And now, here is Gina Gardner, your host of Leadership for Life.
Hello there. And welcome to today's show. And I'm so thrilled to be able to share with you my guest, Dr. Alison J.K. We're going to be talking about the way in which the changes that we're all facing in this world are actually a good thing, and how you can harness your own energy, how you can develop spiritually in order to make the best of what's going on. When you look at the news, when you are talking to people, there is such a depth of negativity. People are anxious, depressed. There's so much uncertainty, division, and it's very easy to get drawn into that and find that you're feeling low and overwhelmed and as if there's nothing that you can do. And that vibrationally brings you to a low vibration. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with energy and the principle of vibration, then this show will give you a real insight to it. You know, when you walk into a room and you're talking to people, and at the end of talking to people, you feel as if you've been put through the ringer, you're reacting, you're interacting with that energy. And yet you'll meet other people where you come away from them and you feel empowered and you feel buzzing with energy, and they're operating from a high vibration. Those who choose to focus on their own personal and spiritual development, who operate from a place of harmony and from love and connection, they're going to have a vibration which creates a life that's very, very different to those who live from a place of fear, those who are always looking at what they can't do or can't have, who get engaged in what I think is a very dangerous virus. And that virus is that of comparatonitis. You know, when you compare what you've got or what you do with other people, and you feel that you're wanting, you feel the lack, rather than noticing the abundance of the amazing world that we live in. Even when life is hard, you can look at nature and wonder at its great abundance. My guest, Alison J.K., Dr. Alison J.K., has a huge wealth of knowledge about the subtle energies and energy medicine. And that may be something very foreign to you, something that you think is pink and fluffy. But I need to let you know that it's anything but. The energies that we operate in actually determine the quality of our life, our health, our relationships, whether we succeed and we maintain that success or not. Many of you will be familiar with The Secret, and some of you may be aware of Esther Hicks and how she talks about what goes on in our vortex vibrationally actually becomes our reality. But if that's something out of your experience, I just want you to think about how you operate on a day-by-day basis. So I think about when I was back at school, and those of you that watched the show before will know that I was a principal head teacher for over 20 years. And I would say to staff, you know, have a think about how you turn up in the morning. You know, it may be that, you know, you've had a row with the children, that the washing machine's broken down, that the cat's been sick, the car didn't start. And then you arrive at school and you're grumpy and you're just finding that you are frustrated about the day. What often happens with that is that carries on throughout the day, and you blame it on everybody else. The thing is that if you stay in that vibration, that everything's going wrong, poor me, then you are going to stay stuck in victim mode. But if you recognize that these things are not happening to you, that actually they are there and they're probably telling you to slow down a bit, to get a bit more prepared the night before, or just to recognize that sometimes life just happens. And actually it's up to you whether or not you make a big meal of it and you carry it on. In the same way, some of you will be familiar with me talking about dealing with disability and focusing on what I could do, which was to run my school, rather than what I couldn't do, which was to stand or walk for long periods of time. I was able to have a very productive professional life, and the quality of my life was hugely better. Why? Because I was focusing on what I could do. And when there were problems, I looked for solutions rather than focusing on the problem and focusing on, poor me, I can't do this and I can't do that. Ultimately, your quality of life is going to be far better, and so will the quality of life around you be far better. Now, I'm not an expert on energy work. I've studied energetic NLP, and I have done lots of reading and been on courses. But you're going to have the real benefit of somebody who spends their life looking and working and being engaged in energy work, and who's able to help understand that and take a step forward. But even if you're completely unfamiliar with this, just think about how you feel when you're angry, when you're fed up, when you're fearful, when everything seems negative and overwhelming. Your body language changes, your shoulders slump, you stand forward, bent forward, and that mood becomes really heavy. People talk about walking through treacle, that everything feels an effort. I feel like I'm pushing a bus uphill. And when you're working out of a low frequency, that's exactly how it feels. When you're working from a place of gratitude, love, forgiveness, hope, joy, then everything feels much lighter. Everything is much more possible, and you are able to access things with ease and grace. I know that from my own experience, and I know that from working with so many clients. But you, as I've said so often, you are the common denominator that you take into every moment of of your life. So it's down to you to decide. It's down to you to choose what vibration, what energy state you're going to live in. Now, don't take it from what I'm saying that, if you live in a high vibrational state, that you're never going to have challenges. Life happens. But I can say that when you come from a high vibrational state, managing those challenges actually becomes much more possible, much easier than when you are in an unresourced state, because you are in those lower energetic frequencies. Again, if you've listened to the show before, you'll know that when you are in that sense of anxiety and overwhelm, it's very left brain. You are only able to think of either or, black and white, and it's usually looking at catastrophe. Whereas if you can breathe and take a moment to get into your right brain, that's where you find and actually manage solutions. It's where you can be creative. It's where you have lots of options and you can find a way forward much more easily. It just helps you be that much more resourced, much more able to find a way forward. So it makes sense, even if it's something that you're unfamiliar with, to start thinking about your vibrational state. We're going to be exploring that in far more detail after the break. So don't go away. We'll see you in a couple of minutes, and I'll introduce Alison J.K., the doctor. See you then.
You have been listening to Gina Gardner on Leadership for Life. We'll be back after this quick break. Want to get the best out of life personally and professionally? Are you ready to step into a life which excites and fulfills you? Well, the right place for you is Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. We will share with you stories from inspiring people, a wide range of guest experts, and lots of practical strategies to help you get the very best out of your personal and professional life. Leadership for Life is a radio and TV show focused on helping you live a happier, more successful, and fulfilling life. Join international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer, Gina Gardner, live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Become the leader of your own life. Gina Gardner's #1 international best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success, and Fulfillment, provides you with the foundational principles on which to become the best leader of your own life. It's available as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and as an audio from genuinely-u.com, or also from Amazon. Every one of the principles have been proven to work for the countless people who have used them, including the author. Now, let's put them to work for you. If you're ready to discover your true leadership life design, accelerate your journey with an invitation to join Gina for Leadership for Life VIP Day. Choose your journey of self-discovery where Gina will help you navigate your way to happiness, success, and fulfillment. To find out more, email gina@genuinely-u.com. Welcome back to Leadership for Life. Here is your host, Gina Gardner.
Hello there. Actually, I was very remiss. I didn't remind you at the beginning of the program that if you put up a comment, whether it's in the live show or on one of the recordings, that we will donate on your behalf to B1G1, Buy One, Give One. And although I'm going to speak later about which project Dr. Alison has chosen, don't forget that for every 100 people who watch the show, we will donate meals to the hungry. The donations for your comments you can choose. Put E for education, F for food, or E for environment, and we will donate to one of those projects on your behalf. So let me talk about Dr. Alison Kay. She's an experienced public speaker with more than 25 years experience as a mind-body energy healer. She founding the vibrational upgrade system and working in yoga, meditation, qigong, energy medicine, mind-body fitness, longevity, and holistic health with a specialization in the chakra system. She's spoken and taught around the world, has written 4 books, and is considered one of the leading experts in the field of new thought, subtle energy, and energy medicine, and the human potential field. So without more ado, let me welcome Dr. Alison J. Kay. Hello and welcome. Oh, we've got a bit of a technical problem because we can't actually hear you. So if you could unmute your mic.
Myself on mute. Sorry. Hi.
Technical problems happen. Hello there, and a huge welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here. It's a good match. I was a classroom teacher and administrator for 12 years myself, English Lit.
Well, it just shows my subject was English too, so that's even more of a reason for us to be connected. I'm fascinated by your work, but I think before we start, can you just give us an overview of how did you come to be an expert in energy medicine and subtle energies, from having been a teacher and an administrator to here?
Okay. The short version is I went into college as a psychology major, and 3 semesters in, I found that the major was not at all talking about nor showing me how to be the most vibrant, thriving version of myself and ourselves to share with others. So prior to going into college with that major, I had grown up since I could walk basically out in the woods with my older brother. We were in a suburban place south of Boston, quite rural. And he would be in front of me, jumping on the already dead trees and breaking them as boys do with their high energy. And I'd be just like connecting with everything and feeling. So it wasn't ever a question of like, I'm not a part of the trees and the dragonflies and the critters and the cloves and the creek. And so then in my teen years, I started to write in a journal, and that was really a deepening of my connection to all that is and to my own voice, getting a flavor of what my guidance sounded like and really anchoring in that. So I went into this psychology major with this sense of connection and with this sense of intuitive guidance. And it just was so cut off from a sense of thriving, because I really approached this whole question, as you heard me just say, my take on the psychology major. I was asking, how do we have the most thriving, joyous, adventurous lives? Like, I'm in a body. Let's go, you know? So ever since then, I guess I've been looking at different holistic models. I ultimately ended up with an English lit major, had a couple other ones in between of social thought, political economy, and then marketing, mass communications. So I saw the conditioning put upon us in society via those different means, and I ended up with English lit to study humans in an art form, and society, sociology, politics, in an art form. So I went over to San Francisco to go for my master's in creative writing, and while I waited after writing the stories to get admitted, I synchronistically got offered a job as a political organizer and really hit my stride. It was about protecting the environment, which relates to my choice for the charity. And it was for electing people to both local, California, state, and federal in the states Congress, so that not people who would vote yes on environmentally protective legislation, but who would write that legislation. So it was really, really supremely logical. And I tried, and I got put in really intense races. So I had a lot of stress, because the more success I had, the more they put me in key races that I so wanted to win, because the issues were so important. So, for example, I got the first Latina woman in the LA area elected to the California State Assembly, and she saved the last patch of green space in LA Basin as a result of getting into the California State Assembly. Yeah. So as I was about getting ready to go on to the general election, where there was a developer against an environmentalist up in the Sierra Nevadas, I was walking through a bookstore looking for some support about how to manage this stress, and a book jumped off the shelf, stopped right in front of my feet, and I chose not to step on it and picked it up, and it was on meditation. And I had already been going to the Chinatown there in San Francisco, which I think is the best one in the States, even better than New York and Boston's. And I was reading the I Ching at this point. I had taken yoga in college. The first book on mindfulness in the United States came out of where I went to university. So I was already aware of the more the Eastern practices somewhat. So I fast forward, and now I've completed the political work. I've traveled overseas, including to the UK. It was my first place I went. Lived overseas for a bit. This wasn't my first time overseas, and then went back to the States and got a master's in public administration and public policy, focusing on environmental policy. Got done with it. As I graduated, got my first energy medicine modality. Had been teaching meditation, by the way, at this point to adults, and was finding, that feeling when doors don't just naturally open and something's easy, but the path instead has a lot of closed doors, or like that sense you're pushing. And so that was happening when I was going for the job placement, my master's, and I stepped back and said, okay, what you trying to tell me here? And what I understood was, at that point, it was 97, I believe, and maybe 96. And I was made aware that it's not ready to change yet. The threshold hadn't been reached to stop the reliance on fossil fuels. The collective just wasn't there yet. The mentality wasn't there yet. So if I wanted change, it was one person at a time, one consciousness at a time.
Yeah.
So I pulled out of that, relied on my bachelor's and went into the classroom teaching, and alongside that started running energy medicine sessions as well as holistic health and wellness sessions, because I had other trainings in herbalism and et cetera, TCM. So then fast forward 2.5 years of having a great session with a client on a Saturday. She's on like number 3 of 10. We're both really thrilled, and I had my hands over her. You see me sitting here like this, over her third and second chakras. And I asked my guidance, okay, how do I get a bus? And at the same time, it was too much of a struggle. The classroom teaching was great, and I was even having a club with kids labeled ADD and ADHD and teaching them Qigong and blah, 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 really helping, and excited about that integration to the classroom of these other interests of mine. And yet it was too difficult to make ends meet. Plus, I felt caged, and you can't cage me. That's not a good thing. And I was like, is this going to be my life for decades to come? That's not okay. And I was having too much of a difficulty having ends meet. The abundance that I know is inherent to the universe was not showing itself. And I knew that there was better. So I asked my version of, okay, what else is possible? And within a month got shown the international school system, did what I had to do, submitted the stuff, traveled where I needed to, met with directors, got job offers, chose Asia. And because it was the seat of, here in the West, we used to understand how energy worked. Like the alchemist had a sense of it. And then it went underground once the Enlightenment happened. But in the East, not only do they have 5,000 years of not only Taoist principles, but yogic principles, the two different cultures, Chinese and Hindu, but they were still operating in today's modern day living from those premises, culturally organizing themselves and doing their medicine from there and their social interactions from there. So I chose Asia, and I was there for 10 years. And anytime I wasn't teaching or in the gym after school, because I was a gym rat, I'm a personal trainer too, I was out at the monasteries, or I was getting traditional treatments and asking questions as best I could in my Chinese. And I became a yoga teacher in India. I became a Qigong teacher in both Thailand and Taiwan on vacations. I got these certifications, attended chanting, went to monasteries and talked with the monks, and was surprised to find that in a monastery, like for talking, than there is for sitting down and meditating, because it's just so much debate over the ancient wisdom. So then I came back to the States with the understanding in 2010 with the mission of, man, if people in the West only knew how much more is available, if we valued and understood the science behind consciousness and subtle energy, there'd be so much less struggling and so much more thriving. Basically answering my question I had asked as a psych major. And then the second mission, part of my mission, is to professionalize energy medicine. Instead of it being like to do energy work, or, you get excited about some breakthrough you've had and you force one of your family members who are in total resistance, to receive what you've learned, and just stopping all of that. So here I am. I hope that helps.
It does. And I think people are now much more open, or many people are much more open and ready. Yeah. And it seems to me that we are very much at a watershed, and that there is a need for people to recognize themselves as energetic beings. And when I look at what's going on in the world, I mean, one of the things that drew me to your work is that the turbulence and the change is a good thing. And I think for many people, they find that hard to recognize. I also think it's a good thing. But this show is about helping people understand perhaps new things, but also how can they take that into their own life to thrive. And to be really interested, for those people who are struggling financially, struggling in terms of being fearful about the uncertainty, what you would offer them in terms of your experience that would really help them move forward, move out of that place of fear and lack.
I love how you put that. And I'm excited I saw you that this is what you wanted to talk about, and you really chose a good topic with me. In 2011, I had been back to the States for about a year. Voice America approached me and asked me to do a weekly radio show on the Mayan galactic alignment that was coming in December 21st, 2012. I had been doing nothing public facing in my business with the Mayans or galactic alignment. I was taking VIP clients on because I am usually housed. I'm in the UK about a quarter of the year, and
Mhm.
most of the time in Florida on the Caribbean coast, the West Coast. So I just have to go across the Gulf of Mexico to get to where the Mayan ruins are in the Yucatan. So I've been taking clients on VIP trips there, but nobody knew that except
No.
them. So anyway, I just sat with that. I told them, give me 48 hours, please. And I said yes. And I did the show and I got to interview a bunch of specialists, not only from my book, What is Nothing Wrong, who were scientists who developed ways to measure subtle energy and ways to measure the impact of like meditation and consciousness, but also the specialists who understood what December 21st, 2012 was about. And so it's this 20-year window from 2012 to 2032, where we're going through our greatest evolutionary leap. And it's also coined humanity's spiritual awakening. So I know, like, when I came back and I started to focus on this more, I started to question, like, is the worry about germs, like all the need for antibacterial soap, like, is that people starting to sense as things are starting to open and awaken? And then I heard people coming to my free monthly call or coming in to my business and asking for help with tinnitus or with skin breakouts or with eating disorders and all of that, not eating disorders, excuse me, with food sensitivities.
Yeah.
And all of that is the opening, because it's not just within us, it's also the vibrational backdrop that we're living in. So we used to live like in a more physically solidly based Newtonian physics world, and now it's more the quantum physics energy wave world. And so things feel different. And so the tools now to be working with is no longer wanting and expecting things to be solid and real and reliable and predictable and routinized the way that they once were, and instead being able to work with your consciousness, your mind, the different levels of consciousness, and how that then therefore interrelates, intertwines with the subtle energy system, how the energy either runs in your system and you're feeling vital and alive and happy and abundant and ready to flourish, or you're shut down, worried, depressed, anxious, and not understanding and closed off. Because the nature of the times now is to clear that part of the ego mind that has connection to the past, has been dense, heavy for you, or imbalanced, where there's maybe been an abuse of power, or you've maybe been too mind dominant, or maybe there's been the lockup of money up here and the rest is suffering. I just had a meeting with my financial advisor yesterday, and it was fantastically uplifting because he was saying basically something that made me say to him, so what you're telling me is you're seeing a sign that there's an increased distribution of wealth? And he took a moment and he said, yeah. So that's very exciting. And I have been saying for years that we're entering into the abundance for all time, and that money does in fact grow on trees. And the way to really take back your power and feel less anxious is to understand that while you're not responsible for everything that happens around you, there is randomness, there is karma. I don't want people to think if they use the law of, like, I see a lot of people take responsibility for absolutely everything. And I differ from that. I say there's at least 10% randomness, but know that overall, the thoughts that you hear is only one level that creates your vibration, and what you're putting out there that the universe doesn't interpret, it just matches. Law of magnetics, it's a universal law. It's the formal way of saying law of attraction. So that if you work on clearing what I call the back of the house consciousness, the subconscious and unconscious, like what you have grown up with from age 2 to 8, you're looking around, how does life work on planet Earth? Well, my oldest sister gets that yummy feeling I want from mom when she dresses up and dances. Okay, so I guess if I act like that, I dress up and I dance or act like a little doll, I'll get yummy feeling. And so that could get that gets locked as an unconscious conclusion, not a subconscious level, but an unconscious conclusion. And then that girl may be, as a woman, overly concerned with her physical appearance and overly concerned with dressing really cutesy. Yeah. So there's the subconscious takes in trauma and other things that it's too much to go into right now, but that all those are two examples of two different levels of thoughts you're not going to hear. So it's only about 10%, 15% of the thoughts that we're actually having that we actually hear. And that's where we're making our choices from for our daily life. So there's at least 85, I think it's closer to 95% of what we're not accessing, we're not hearing, so we're not understanding. It's ruling our lives. And
I could say I agree with you. I talk to people about the fact that 95% of our thoughts are unconscious, and they lead to habitual beliefs, behaviors, languages, how we operate in the world. And because they don't pass our conscious thought, then we tend to be reactive rather than proactive. And part of my teaching is about take radical responsibility for you, for your thoughts, for your beliefs. And if they're not serving you, then ditch them, because they're probably not yours to start with. They're probably the conditioning you're talking about of parents and teachers. And it just seems to me that we are in a time where it's time critical that people own who they are, step into their genuine power, and recognize it's their choice. They can stay stuck with the old stuff, or they can choose more empowering ways of being, more empowering thoughts if they want to. And that sounds as if it's very much in alignment with what you're teaching too.
Gina, that's perfectly aligned with what I'm doing. The thing that differentiates me from the feedback from my students is they tell me, Dr. Alison, I was aware of the law of attraction before I worked with you. I was aware of there being more to life, but you're the one who taught me the how. So I see a lot of people come to me thinking what you just said, that I need to step into my empowerment and I need to own and manage my thoughts and choose the ones that are positive. And that's almost impossible to do on your own. And you're
agree.
And so many people, like, they'll do it for a month or 3 months and then they'll quit because they don't. Like, I had one woman buy a product off my shop then this week, and she in one day expected like radical change in her life from listening to it's the first time I've ever had that. 11 years of business. One day, say I don't see money coming in.
I would expect that if you were dressed up in a very, very sort of sparkly outfit with a wand and a sparkly hat, and you'd gone ting and there was a puff of green smoke, then she could have expected that in a Disney film. But I think it just demonstrates, doesn't it, that people want instant. They don't recognize that actually it requires an investment of time from them. They've got to actually do it and embed it. I'm really interested in your how, because obviously I work with clients and I've got a range of hows, but I suspect that our hows are different, and would be great to hear just a flavor of your hows. I know we haven't got time to do it, but so people understand that, what you're doing, and if that resonates with them, then that you're the person that they would go to.
Gina, how much time do we have?
Well, I'm going to let it run on because I'm so interested in this thing. So we've got about 10 minutes now.
Okay. Before I go into, I think I'm going to just give you a clearing and activation. I think I'm just going to do one.
Okay, great.
Okay. But before I say that, you just triggered something that I love what you just said, because I remember when I first got back, I was at a Hay House convention. I was actually going to meet Bruce Lipton.
Mm-hmm. How wonderful. I'd like to meet him.
Yeah, he was on my radio. It's just, you just want to hug. He's just so much heart. Look at how lit up I just got talking about him.
I do. Yes, I do. I'm sharing it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce. And so there was a woman on stage, I'm not going to say her name, and she was known through Hay House as a shaman. And she was on stage and she was doing she was dressed up almost like what you just described. And she was doing all of this movement with her arms and like really what I deem as unnecessary stuff. And I never get called up on stage. I kind of go invisible, so that doesn't happen. And I'm not easily hypnotized, so I don't get called up on stage for that reason either, because I went and did that in high school with my older brother, and he did. So I get called up on stage with this woman, and she does something, one of her processes on me, and I felt absolutely nothing. And I know the irony of, like, it's almost like look at me, I'm dressed in a gray sweatshirt. It's almost like the more talk you are, I don't know. It just, like, I've had my nose to the grindstone because what I do works. That's why I keep doing it. Otherwise, I do something else.
Yeah.
So, like, I want to say to people that not everybody out there, and this isn't a way of marketing. It's just, please use your discernment, because you could waste time and money with someone who is just repeating something they just learned and haven't yet understood how to master themselves. And so you go in with these huge expectations and you want really quick results, like you and I were just both saying, and you won't get them if you're with somebody who hasn't yet had a certain level of clearing themselves and done the work on themselves for long enough. There's a lot of great hype.
Can I just say to you that one of the watchwords of this show is, if you're going to lead other people, you have to lead yourself first. And you have to lead with integrity and compassion and courage. And for me, there's a lot of Emperor's New Clothes out there. Aren't I wonderful? And look at what I'm doing. And it's lots of razzmatazz. And there's no authenticity. And I think that that's exactly what you're describing.
Yes. The substance is lacking, but the material, visual, it's good optics for social media, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to ask you, you brought Black abundance. And I tend to have a special, like in my signature program, Magic, Manifestation, and Money Flow. It's not my basic program. This is a much more robust program. I seem to be loaning people my vibrations that are connected with success and the knowing of the abundance for all vibration is part of my mission, it seems. When I came back in 2010 to the States, I expected to be teaching and talking and helping people with spiritual awakening and the spiritual path and holistic health and wellness. And everybody was so worried about the crash with the housing and the economy that I ended up like, they couldn't do anything but deal with their fears around money. So I became ridiculously proficient in clearing money blocks, and unexpectedly so.
Brilliant.
So do you want me to do one around that?
I think that would be absolutely fabulous. And I'm sure the people who are watching and listening would really value that. Interestingly, I think that money almost acts as the focus. And often when that logjam goes, that opens the doors of possibilities to other things.
Yeah, I actually even say sometimes it's like a trick the ego mind uses to hook somebody into actually do the spiritual work. But it's either that, or it's like a health crisis, or it's like multiple crises, divorce, loss of a loved one, and then something else. Yeah, that makes people, like, their ego just crash and they look for something beyond what they know. Yeah. So I'm like you said, I love that you said this. Is a lot of alignment here, Gina. Thank you very much. But you said about being proactive. Because that's what happens. If you're not proactively seeking growth, then you're going to have a crisis or three require you to grow. Yeah. And that's what
the universe will give you a little nudge, and then it gives you a bigger nudge, and then it gives you a slap round the face, and then it gives you a full-on kick up the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what COVID is. I mean, I have not philosophized about COVID at all. So many people are doing it. I've been talking about the cleansing that's been going on for humanity and the earth since 2011. This is just part of it. But I feel like not enough people have done enough purification work. And so we ended up as far as we did with this. Okay. So
go for the clearing, because I'm very conscious of time, and the floor is yours. Here we are.
Okay. So thank you for the consciousness of time. Very crunched is right now. So let's have you close your eyes, y'all. And please, if you're driving or you're paying attention to an elderly one that you're caring for, or a young one that you're caring for, please come back and listen to this when it's in recorded form, because you're going to likely alter your state of consciousness. And I know many people might rise to the challenge and say, I can handle it, stay alert, multitask, but you'll get less out of it too. And just let yourself know that if you have any reactions, like your legs or arms twitching, or you yawn, or like there's a sudden pain in a part of your body, it's because there's more life force being allowed in as the clearing works. You might get sleepy, you might doze off. I think that that's about it for now. Heat in the hands and feet, tingles, goosebumps. I think that's enough. So I'm going to be silent for just a moment and get myself into the requisite space here. So all of the places where you have been disinviting and even rejecting abundance and prosperity, would you be willing to burn all of that up with the flames of transmutation?
Yes.
So, listeners, if you say yes out loud, it invites the energy in more. So, any and all free floating thoughts and traumas,
Yes.
any and all, oh, you don't have to say yes, it's okay. Thank you. I might be silent for a moment to let the something really, any and all imprints from your parents and lineage. This includes poverty consciousness that got passed down, it seems. Lack mentality. I'm hearing we don't have enough for that. We can't afford that. Contraction passed down. Over reliance on budget, on looking at expense column and not income and generation column. All the conditioning that in any way is contributing to rejecting and blocking abundance and prosperity increasing in your life, burning all that conditioning out. All karma as appropriate, including but not limited to financial karma, in all contracts, oaths, vows, across all lifetimes and timelines, including but not limited to vows of poverty and vows of austerity and vows of chastity. And at all levels of consciousness, all beliefs, judgments, expectations of how you are with money, how money is with you, and projections. Burning it all up now. Flames of transmutation. Hmm. Oh, wow. It's actually going to some of your root chakras in the back, right at the tailbone. Some of this is about tribal. People like us don't have more than enough. People like us are meant to struggle, almost limiting yourself based on wanting to honor parents and wanting to fit in and not wanting to move beyond where your friends and family and parents are at financially, so you stay at the same level with them in unconscious agreement, or maybe even conscious agreement. There's fears of if you are the wealthy one, stepped out, people will ask you for money, you'll lose it all. I hear unworthiness getting cleared. I'm just not worthy. I'm not one of those types of people. I also hear a resistance to money. Like, I don't need money. It's bad to be materialistic. That means I'm not spiritual or close to God. And that's of the old paradigm, the old era. Good. Constriction around the throat chakra, around being able to choose opportunities can lead to more money. So I see some people playing it safe and staying with the familiar and not taking risks that may even require investing more money, but stepping out of comfort zone of where you're used to living at your standard of living, making new choices. So clearing out the resistance to making those. So in lieu of the time, you can listen to the replay. That was a good start. I'm going to go ahead and activate the upgrade now. So everything that was just mentioned and not mentioned, but cleared, is all coming into alignment with your highest divine blueprint. So any and all latent keys and codes within you, and inherent talents within you, and any and all blessings and support possible to bring this all into alignment for your highest potential and your highest possibilities to become physically realized. Activating the upgrade now. I also hear a little bit clearing right now, still on receiving, not being afraid to open, fear of being vulnerable. So blocking, deflecting money, blocking the receiving. Wow, that was a really good one. And it's still working apparently, because I don't usually do activation mention what still see clearing. Look at that smile.
Oh, thank you. I'm just very conscious that we've now got 2 minutes before the show ends. I'm going to have you back.
Okay.
B1G1, you have chosen for us to donate on your behalf to plant trees to increase forest cover. It's so, again, in alignment with what you do. And every guest is asked to different projects each month. Those of you that listen will know about B1G1, buy one, give one. And if you're a businessman, it's a really great way to get involved, and you can it's done in a way that you can give as little or as much, but you can collectively make a huge difference. So please go and have a look. In the show notes is our code. We can then see how we fertilized giving beyond this show. Alison, it's been an absolute pleasure. As I say, you'll have to come back because there just wasn't enough time. Thank you so much. Where can people get hold of you?
Vibrationalupgrade.com. Alison with one L, I'm sorry, Jkay on Amazon. All 4 books of mine are on Amazon. Make sure you use the middle initial J. And then Vibrational Upgrade on Facebook. There's a free Facebook group. Feel free to come in and play.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to have to finish the show there. We will have Alison with one L and a J back very soon. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, thank you, Alison. But those of you who are listening, take heed. You are the person who has the power to change your life, but you have to be proactive. You have to be the leader of your own life. We'll see you next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Hey.
You have been listening to The Leadership for Life with your host, Gina Gardner. Make sure you tune in to W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV next Thursday and every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for more Leadership for Life. If you missed any part of this episode or just want to hear or see it again, you can find the archive of the TV show on Talk 4 TV's YouTube channel and the podcast of The Leadership for Life on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you listen to your podcasts.